Constitution, as adopted in 1788, was a powerful vehicle designed to take us on an exciting ride of freedom and prosperity. The essence of the workings of the Constitution was in these three spheres of activity we call the drivetrain of the Constitution. Now, these could be likened to the drivetrain of an automobile. You have the engine, then the transmission, down through the gear assembly to the wheels where the rubber meets the road and takes you on that ride. The engine of the Constitution is the ultimate arbiter of the Constitution. This is the individual whose responsibility it is to take those words of the Constitution from the printed page, to interpret them, to give those words meaning in the Constitution life. The power source of the Constitution is the ultimate arbiter. The separation of powers component is designed to contain the federal government, a transmission of sorts. Sometimes, depending on world events, the federal government has to get into high gear. But most of the time, it's contained at a moderate speed, controlled by this component, the separation of powers. The rubber meets the road down here at state sovereignty. This is where growth and development takes place. And we are not talking about growth and development of government. That's not what this ride of freedom and liberty is all about. This is the growth and development of our culture, of our heritage of liberty that we want to pass on, that we can be proud of and pass on to our children and grandchildren. That's what is important, and that's what this component is for. So this is the drivetrain of the Constitution and how it's supposed to work. And this is the emphasis of our studies on the constitutional seminars. There's a second important reason to use the term drivetrain, and that's to distinguish these from the Bill of Rights. This Constitution and its drivetrain were adopted in 1788. George Washington took office, and Congress sat down to write laws early in 1789. The Bill of Rights did not come along for another couple of years. The reason is, the Bill of Rights are just safety features. They're like seat belts, airbag, rearview mirrors. The Bill of Rights is not the drivetrain. It's not even part of it. The drivetrain is the essence of the Constitution. The Bill of Rights are safety features to try to protect us from this federal government should these not operate the way they were designed. With this version of the Constitution in place, there actually came to be the prospects of world peace. You know, before the Europeans arrived, according to records, the Indian tribes were almost always at war with each other. And things didn't change much with the arrival of the Europeans. As the Spanish and the Portuguese and the French and the English arrived, they not only warred with the Indians, but they warred with each other. And after the Revolutionary War, there were actually concerns that several of the newly formed sovereign states might go to war with each other. But then this got instituted and things settled down. And even today, on the North American continent, you do not find Indian tribes warring with each other. The Canadians are not at war with the United States. The United States is not at war with Mexico. Wherever this is dominant, peace seems to reign. But outside of this domain, worldwide, we find constant war. And the prospect of world peace has become nothing but a fantasy. What happened? A little more than 70 years into the life of our Constitution, a severe assault was made on this drivetrain and its operation. It came from Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln wanted more money from the South than the South was willing to give. But Lincoln was determined to get it anyway, so he sent in his tax collectors. The South retaliated with force of arms, and the Civil War was underway. The Civil War went on violently for about 5 years and culminated in the abolition of state sovereignty. Lincoln was assassinated shortly after the end of the Civil War. However, vindictive Northern congressmen wishing to impose more havoc on the southern states, proposed the 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment was never properly ratified. However, its institution severely weakened the separation of powers component of the drivetrain and its ability to contain the federal government. The ultimate arbiter in all this violence and tumult said little, sat in the background. And that's where our country sat in 1868, crippled with a mangled constitution. The country limped along for the next 45 years in this crippled condition with a broken constitution until we got to 1913. Where 3 violent assaults on our Constitution wiped out the drivetrain and Europeanized this country. You know, you don't hear anything about the drivetrain these days. All you hear about is the safety features. You'll hear about your freedom of speech under the First Amendment, or your right to keep and bear arms under the Second. A little talk about eminent domain under the Fifth. And some states have actually gotten into arguments with the federal government over the 10th Amendment, states' rights. But believe me, states' rights is a status far below state sovereignty. It's not even close. And that's where we sit today. Just another European country thrown into that cesspool of war and financial stress that we thought we'd escape from, that Europe's been living with for 1,000 years. But this is the United States today, Europeanized with the most dangerous national government on the planet. And a Bill of Rights, the seatbelts. How do we correct this? Simple. Repeal 1913 and the 14th Amendment too, of course. If you listen to the political pundits, they will tell you this can't be done. It's impossible. You have to do something practical. Well, if it is impossible, we're going to do it anyway, because we have to. And there's nothing practical about wallowing in this European cesspool of misery. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, it's a big job. But it is possible, and it's not as difficult as the pundits would lead you to believe. The secret to getting the job done, the secret to rebuilding this drivetrain and putting it back into operational condition is within the drivetrain itself. I don't think anybody can just tell you about it though. We haven't found that workable. We're certainly not going to try and teach it to you or lecture you on the subject. You're going to have to put your thinking caps on, or better yet, your viewing goggles, and discover it for yourself. We conduct the seminars using the Socratic method, and we call the conductors of the seminars just that, conductors. The conductor asks the questions, you come up with the answers. We do give you a copy of the answer book, the Constitution, and there are other supporting references we give out also. But all reference documents come from the Founding Fathers. We have no interest in modern day interpretations of the Constitution that have mangled this path to freedom and prosperity that the Founders have envisioned. Which path, by the way, once restored, will put us back onto that road to world peace. So join us. It's exciting, it's fun, at times unbelievable, but it's all there just like we say it is. Sign up for one of our seminars and take a look.